Boom! We're back. It's been a minute. Something's running loud here, fan or something like that. But what's going on, people? It's been a minute. Wanted to check back in, see how everybody's doing. I've been busy, man. Doing a lot of different stuff. Took a trip out of town, out to Baltimore, DC. That was my first time anywhere on the East Coast, so that was cool. I went out there for job number one. They wanted to do a get together because I think all of the devs are remote, and none of us have ever met, so kind of did a little get together. What's up, Ace? What's going on, man? Yeah, I think you might be the first one in today on this lovely Friday. Oh, okay. Nothing much. How's life going? Life is good, man. Life is real good right now. So, just working. Took that trip to Baltimore I was just talking about. First time meeting a lot of the people that I work with from the main company I work with. And it was good, man. Did 3 days out there, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then flew back Thursday evening after work. It was good. Every evening we did some kind of fun activity. We left and went to happy hour, and then the first night we did a what they call it, escape room. How often do I travel? Yeah, man, went to be more. I don't travel at all anymore. Now, it was the exact opposite last year. The company I worked for in Denver last year, I probably took 40 flights in 2016. And that was one of the things that was really the main reason why I left that company in that position, was because of the travel. They really, what it turned out, it became very prevalent after I took the job, that they really wanted somebody to be on site, and they kind of, I don't want to use the word compromise, but they settled. They settled for a remote developer when they really wanted a on-site developer, because I ended up being the only remote developer. So it was weird. It's not good working in a company that doesn't have a remote culture. So sorry, I'm reading Play's comment. Let's see. So he said get a webcam, huh? Get a webcam for live stream. I don't do live because I can't think of things to say on the spot. Is the quality not good? Play? Is that why you say get a webcam? Because I'm shooting this on my phone using that new iPhone X. If anything, it's dark in here because I keep these. This room has shutters, and I keep these shutters, not wide open. I should put them wide open when I'm doing these lives, and I'll get more natural light in. Oh, that's too bright almost. But that'll help with the. That should help with the light right there. So, well, depends on where I sit. So, anyway. Yeah, it's not good working in a company that working remote for a company that does not have a remote culture, because then you end up feeling like the outcast or something. I'm gonna try to find a better setup to sit y'all at so you can see. Okay, I think that might be a little better. So that was the biggest thing. They really kept putting the pressure on and kept asking. They wanted me to bring my family out there, my old lady and my kids, and so that they could see Denver, and secretly kind of hoping that they would fall in love with it and want to move there, and then they didn't have to deal with the remote thing anymore, or I'd just be living there. But anybody that watches here knows that I always take the financial situation into account before I make any type of choices or decisions. So, and just leaving the state of Nevada, with it having no state taxes, anywhere else I go that has state taxes is an instant pay decrease. So, for me to maintain the same quality of life, I would have to get a bump in pay that was equivalent to whatever the state's, taxes is. California, for example, is one I know off the top of my head is 13%. So for every 100,000, you need to get a pay bump of 13 grand to go there, and not take a hit on the quality of life. And then you have to take into account the cost of living as well. So. And Denver, as I found out, I had no clue about Denver. I knew 0% about Denver, but I found out pretty quickly that it is one of the most expensive places to live in the States. It's always around, the number 5 most expensive place to live in the States. So that's another thing to take into account as well. But anyway, outside of that, I meant to shoot video when I took the trip too, because I don't travel like that for work anymore, and I totally blew it. I got dropped off at the airport, and I just went through security and got on the plane, and I didn't shoot anything those 3 days. And I had a blast. Went to happy hour every day after work. We did an escape room on day 1. I had never even I had heard of an escape room, but I had no clue what it was about. And that was really fun, Doing an escape room with a bunch of developers and coders, I think is probably a totally different experience than just doing it with a bunch of your drunk friends. Because you get developers and they have that logic thinking mind that they're coming up with solutions to the problems to get out of the room at all times. And we actually ended up getting out of our room. The other, we were so big we had to split in 2, and the half I was in got out. The other half did not get out. What's going on, Will? Mr. Durant? Are you first time, Will? If you are, welcome. Welcome to the crew. Appreciate it. If you got any questions, feel free to throw them out. That's why I'm here. I do the live streams. All right. Welcome, man. Yeah, of course. So, I do the live streams. If you're not familiar with the channel, I'm a self-taught developer, software engineer. I work remote from home. This right here is my little office in the background, bedroom. And I don't necessarily do tutorials, although I'm thinking about doing that. I'm really thinking about doing that. I get inspired from Coding Phase. I don't know if you watch Coding Phase's channels. I know a couple people came over here to my channel from Coding Phase because I was making comments on his deal. How long did it take me to learn JavaScript? That's a hard one to answer because I kind of learned JavaScript in a jump in head first type of way, not taking like official JavaScript courses and all. Now, of course, I did that after the fact, but when I first really started getting into JavaScript, I kind of learned backwards, man. I learned backwards. I ended up learning the framework Angular JS version 1 before I really knew JavaScript very strongly. So, I knew Angular. I couldn't even, in the beginning, I didn't know where the separation was between vanilla JavaScript and the framework Angular, So, I couldn't even answer that question, how long it take me to learn JavaScript. How long did it take me to get really comfortable with JavaScript? to be honest, it probably took me about a year and a half, year to a year and a half to get really comfortable. Like you could throw me on any JavaScript project, and I felt like I could contribute to, you know. Now I don't have any issues. I avoid saying using the word expert because I run into stuff every day that I don't know about. So all right. Sorry, I had to learn how to ban people. I appreciate Mr. Will Durant for dropping in the channel and teaching me how to ban some. He's the first official bannee. Let's give him a hand clap there. I appreciate it. All right. So let me get back and make sure. I don't want to wait a year and a half to get it. No. Don't wait a year and a half, Ace, to get. I started learning JavaScript when I was already getting paid to do work. I got hired as an Angular developer before I really knew JavaScript. So I was basically getting paid to learn on the job, you know, because my knowledge was stronger at that point in PHP, more back-end stuff, than it was in JavaScript. But they needed a JavaScript dev, and they put me through the ringer to see if I had the ability to learn JavaScript at least to a point where I could contribute to the team. And they felt comfortable that I had the ability to learn. So, you know, I told that story. They gave me a MacBook and showed me my desk, and they paid me for 3 weeks to watch videos on codeschool.com. Went through all their JavaScript tutorials, went through their Git tutorials, and went through their Angular tutorials. And then I jumped in and got to work hacking away at some code, you know. So that was my unorthodox, or you know, it's not the typical path that people take to get into developing. But a lot of developers that I found or talked to didn't take a you know, typical path. So that's cool. I'm real quick on it now. Appreciate it. Boom. All right, let's see what else. I wish I knew what the basics are like. There is never an answer for this. They say learn the basics. What the heck are the basics? Man, that's a good. Let me close it. This thing is all in my face, man. All right. So the basics with JavaScript, being able to and there's so much stuff that could be the basics. If you look at have you taken any like JavaScript course or tutorial online via either Udemy or Team Treehouse or Code School, or even if you go to YouTube for free and you type in JavaScript basic tutorial, 4 different ones on Udemy, then those things are probably going to be the basics, man. You know how to do, computer programming basics is like how to do loops, how to manipulate lists of items. Those are kind of programming style basics, you know, how to do variables, create functions that do work. And then you start building from that. Everything that's the base layer. If you understand variables and functions and how to loop over items in a list, for JavaScript, understanding how objects work, you know, the whole concept of objects are basically just key value pairs that are put together. What else? I mean, those are kind of basic concepts. Yeah, you're going to think this is weird, but I know how to do all that stuff, but I don't know how to combine it with the page. No, that's not weird at all. Actually, that is exactly where I was at. Yeah, and that was exactly my frustrations in the beginning, was that I was learning these things and they felt like, I knew this thing and that thing and this thing and that thing, but I didn't know how they correlated to building a web page. Once you get those basics down, then with JavaScript, those basics are applicable to any programming language, right? They're all going to have variables, lists, looping over stuff, etc., etc. Specific things to JavaScript is, how do I manipulate items on a page, on a web page? So JavaScript has APIs that will allow you to do such things. Has web APIs that will allow you to do such things. So you could, once you know HTML, you know how you can put a class on an element, put a class or put an ID. JavaScript has function methods that will allow you to grab an element from a page, either by matching on the ID that you put on that element or matching on one of the classes that you put on that element. And once you have a hook into that element, then you can decide what you want to do to it. For example, if you made a square box on the page, you could hook into it with JavaScript, and once you have that hook into it, you could move its location on the page. You could have it spin around. You could have the size of it grow and shrink, and all kinds of stuff that you can do with JavaScript. One of the basic things is to have an input and to be able to capture the text that is put into that input and be able to submit that to a web server. That's your basic login form. 2 little inputs, one for username, one for password. The user types in stuff into the username and then the password, and then when you hit submit, you capture that information from that basic form and you send that information off to a web server that will do a match against the database to see, is this a legit user? Do I have this username and password combination in my database, meaning they belong to my website? If they do, send back a 200 status code. If they don't, then send back a 401. They're not authorized. So you're close. You're very close, man. You just get more into web specific stuff, and that's like basic vanilla JavaScript type stuff. Then once you at least get those concepts in your head, really understand the request response cycle over the web, how things get from your screen and sent to a server somewhere, and the server does some processing and sends something back to your screen, and how do you take action on the payload that was sent back? Really get an understanding of how that goes back and forth. And then you start building from there, and then you can, once you feel really comfortable with that stuff, you can get into some of the frameworks, because learning some of the frameworks are what is going to get you paid probably the quickest. If you pick up React, or you pick up Angular, or you pick up even Vue.js, something like that, on the front end game, those will get you hired very quickly. I watch Chris Sean, I think is his channel, and he was going through that. He was at that phase right now. He actually got work not knowing any frameworks. He knows 0 frameworks. He just knows HTML, CSS, and vanilla JavaScript. And he has a job now, and he did a video on, I think the next step in my career is learning a framework. So if you learn a framework before you even get to that point, we're talking front end specific here. If you learn a framework before you even get your first job, you're that much further ahead. But even if you don't know one, look at him. He got a job just knowing HTML, CSS, and vanilla JavaScript. No frameworks in the picture whatsoever. And he's getting paid to code. Now, your value goes up as a developer the more things that you know, the bigger your skill set is. So if you don't know any frameworks, your ceiling for pay is going to be less if you're working in that front end world. Because nowadays, if you work front end, saying I'm a front end developer is almost synonymous to saying I know at least one framework. So um, there you go. Let's see. Okay. Cool. I see you, Will. I appreciate you coming in. Nice and correct. All right. I went to a meetup 3 weeks ago. It looked like Spanish. And then went last week. I understand what they were doing, just not how they were doing it. Yeah, man. Hey, you're following in the same footsteps that I went in. I went to my first meetup, and I think it was Vegas JS for Vegas JavaScript. I'm gonna close this some more. Tell me if it get too dark and you can't see me, just let me know. I went to my first Vegas JS meetup, and I was so intimidated, man. Way back in the day, way back in the day. I think that was the first meetup I went to, perhaps. And they were talking about stuff, man, that was just like. I mean, I may have caught 10% of what they were talking about and understood it, but man, the majority of that stuff was going over my head, and I left there, and I'm glad I didn't let it. I didn't let it stop me from continuing, to go, because the people I met there were really nice. I think the second meetup I went to was PHP, and that PHP meetup in Las Vegas is a great group of guys. I shouldn't say guys because there's guys and girls. And they really, embrace new people that show up with open arms, and talk to people. And Adam, the guy that was running it at the time, he's a really nice, friendly guy. And he makes sure that you don't leave feeling like you were unwanted in that space. So that encouraged me to keep going to meetups, and meetups have been a big part of my learning and growth and networking within the community, definitely. So keep going, man. Even if that stuff's going over your head, you'll be surprised at how it starts to come, back to you. All right, let's see. Should I learn a framework before or after I apply? I think we talked about that. Cool. You seen Christian, based off his story, getting a job in 3 months. I'm ahead of him in knowledge in 2 months, but he's getting paid. Yeah, hey, don't feel bad about that. Everybody's path is different, man. So that's you can't judge where you are off of what they did, For me, it took me probably about a year from the point I started studying until the point, where I started getting paid, So don't feel like because he did it in 3 months that's the deal. And they pushed his story on Treehouse. They shot my story on Treehouse too. And I think it was 10 months from the time I started on Treehouse that I got my first job. And that's how they framed it kind of in the shot, is that 10 months after I started learning, but that wasn't really the truth, because it was 10 months from when I joined Treehouse that I got the job, but I was learning before I started studying with Treehouse. Their curriculum just really set in with me a lot more than some of the other places at that time, because back in those days, a lot of places didn't have a path or course. One of the biggest things I suffered from was I didn't know which order to learn things in. I was just grabbing for whatever I could get. What's going on, Make Humanity Great Again? I see you. I was grabbing for whatever I could get, but I didn't know what order to do. And Treehouse was one of the first places that came out with tracks and paths. I think a lot of other places have come out with that since then. Like Linda has paths, I think, and Pluralsight has this track thing now where you can learn development, and they tell you which courses to take in which order. But Treehouse was one of the first places to do that, and that's why I really gravitated to them, because they taught me which order. They told me exactly which order I should take the courses in, and the projects would build upon themselves. I was taking the PHP track at that time, and the projects would build upon themselves, and it really made sense to me and the way my brain is wired. So, which isn't the typical. I'll say I think of things different, backwards. Dyslexic. It's hard for me to say, but I always think of things backwards. It drives my lady crazy because we'll get to the same conclusion, but I'm always at the opposite end from where she is starting. But now she knows that. I think my son thinks the same way that I do too, because I can help him with his homework and he gets it like that. And when his mom does, he doesn't. We just think differently or backwards. But that's still not a hindrance. You just have to know, you have to understand the way you learn and just apply that to your learning for the rest of your life. So having dyslexia or whatever it is not a hindrance to being able to learn how to code even. You just got to do what's best for you. So what's going on, people? I see 8 people in the building. Boom, boom, boom. I see our conversation. See our conversation there. That's cool. Boom. But Udemy helps more. I got you. I got you. Yeah, that was the biggest thing for me. Udemy wasn't even that huge when I started. Or I wasn't really aware of Udemy, at least, and I don't know if they had near as many courses as they have now when I started out. So I basically just did that Treehouse thing, and then when I got my first job, they gave me a username and password to Code School, and between the two of those were the online learning places that I used to learn what I learned. Everything from that point, once you start actually getting into code, you start running into specific situations. And then those specific situations will lead you to start Googling and researching how to solve those specific situations. And you start to build up your own internal knowledge base after a while. It's like, okay, if I see this issue, I instantly know what the problem is because I've seen this issue 50 times, and you automatically know. After a while, you don't even make those same mistakes because you've done them so many times. It's just like learning anything in life. So that's cool. How often should I practice making a website? As often as you can. That's one of the biggest things that will accelerate your learning is actual hands-on doing projects. So watching videos and doing tutorials is one thing, but actual hands-on learning, building projects is the fastest way that I believe that you can learn how to do things, because it will force you to make mistakes and run into problems, and then have to learn how to get over that wall of whatever your blocker is at that point. And when you have learned those mistakes, just like what I was just talking about, it accelerates your learning so much faster. I think I was blessed from getting that job, even though I wasn't good at JavaScript at the time, because it forced me to get good at JavaScript way faster than sitting at home just watching a video and not having any type of incentive behind it. I had the ultimate incentive because I had finally landed a job getting paid to write code every day, and I felt like somebody had the fire under my butt because if I slipped up, I could lose that job, and I knew I didn't want to go back to working at a hotel that I was working at, doing that gig. So I was super motivated. I tell the story how I was the first one in at work, and I'd be one of the last ones to leave, and I'd be in on the weekends when there was nobody in the building but me, just so I could stay up with my other coworkers that were way better programmers than me at the time. So I definitely say getting hands-on and forcing yourself to make mistakes and learn is definitely the fastest way to speed up your you're learning there. So Girani, I see you. I'm using Udacity now for Android. Boy, I have been jumping around. All right, all right. Welcome, Girani. If you're new to the channel, why do they call it JavaScript? Was it invented in Java? They called it JavaScript because at that time, Java was huge in the community back in the late '90s when JavaScript was first developed, and so they wanted some tie-in with the name Java. So they called it JavaScript, even though it has absolutely nothing to do with Java. It is a totally different language than Java is. Java is a backend language that's strongly typed language, all kinds of stuff that JavaScript is the exact opposite of. So they just tried to gain popularity from using a name that included Java in the name. So that's why they call it JavaScript. And it's the fast track to get the basic skills. Boom. What does Java have to do with a fast track? I don't know about that conversation. I learned for each 4 and 4 in. Yep. I'm 4 out. Do you need to know all of these? It's good to know all of those. Do I use them in everyday programming? Now, I hardly ever use any of those because a lot of the programming I do now is, well, using for loops. There are some situations where that does come in handy, but usually I use more of the functional programming paradigms. So don't even ask about functional programming. That's like, well, you can ask about functional programming. It's just a different paradigm, functional programming. Or you should YouTube functional programming or Google functional programming and read what that is. So if you're in Angular world, you are introduced to functional programming via RxJS, which is reactive extensions for JavaScript, which use observables and streams, which are use the functional programming paradigm. So if you're in that world, a lot of times you're not kind of for each and over stuff and stuff like that. So good evening. Found you through Golden Child's video. What's going on, Jay? That's my dude right there, Golden Child. He incorporates the business mind and the hustling mentality that I have. That's one of the things that I share with him. I really value his business sense and his future financial plan making that he's doing. You know, everybody thinks his channel is just about being a truck driver if they just browse across his channel, but his channel is about so much more than driving a truck. If you notice lately, he probably shot a video in that truck in forever, man. It's been months and months and months. He ain't been in the truck because he has so many other streams of income coming in, whether it's royalties from publishing, from his book that he wrote, whether it's rent checks coming in on the real estate that he owns. So, you know, he understands multiple streams of income, and he don't just talk about it, but he lives it, you know. He's got the trucking business going on as well, bringing in income to the family. He's got a YouTube business where he makes videos and gets money coming in to the family. So that's my attraction to Golden Child. Yeah, I rep that guy and support him. He gets, you know, super passionate about some stuff too. And, you know, I love it. I rock with him because he's one of the few that's got it together on that point on YouTube. You know what I'm saying? So that's not just talking about a bunch of stuff, but he's living it. I'm going for web development through my local tech school. on January 23rd. Oh, that's cool, man. Learning what I can through YouTube University and Udemy. That is what's up. So that's cool. What do you do now, Jay? If you don't mind me asking, are you a truck driver? You drive trucks? So, uh, I'd rather stick to one. Java was huge. You mean coffee or the island? I wonder if he might just be trolling. Might be trolling there, Mr. Person. Uh, very verbose language. Yes, it is. Java is a very verbose language there, Johnny. They've come out now with Kotlin. And if you are going to learn Android, um, eventually you'll probably be learning Kotlin. And Kotlin's kind of name to fame is that they take a lot of the verbosity away from traditional Java. You can write the same function in like less than half the lines of code if you use Kotlin instead of Java. And Kotlin is now an officially supported language for writing Android um, applications. It used to, just be Java, but now you can write Kotlin and that'll compile down for your Android stuff as well. So good stuff there. Refer to the programming language. Was that not obviously having fun? Yeah, I would make humanity great again. I wouldn't get too caught up in a person. I think he may just be trolling. We had a guy in here that's come in here a bunch of different times under different names, trolling. I keep blocking and he keeps coming back. I learned Java in 1 week from cramming. I didn't sleep at all. I drank a ton of coffee. I think that's why they call it Java. That's what's up, David. That was funny. It was funny. Yeah, Java's the language that most schools teach. So if you go to college for computer science, 9 times out of 10, you're probably going to learn Java. Colleges pump out a lot of Java developers. But there's also a lot of Java work out there. If you want to have guaranteed work for years, you just want to be a developer, go to work, get paid a good pay, and have job security, meaning if your company you're working for goes under or lays off, you can get another job without a lot of hassle. Java is a very good language for that because there's so much Java code that's out there running in the wild that they need developers to maintain that code. So you can always get work if you know Java. It's one of those ubiquitous languages because colleges are spitting out Java people. There was a lot of Java code that's written, and somebody got to maintain that code. So there's always work for Java developers. 9 times out of 10, when you log into your banking application, whatever that is, Wells Fargo, Chase, USA, that don't matter, you're probably running some Java code. A lot of those big financial institutions, back in the day, they used to run COBOL, and now a lot of that switched over to Java, and they'll be running Java for a long time. So you're always going to have some work, done. Some work to do, rather. All right. Let's go back and see. Man, y'all killing it. I'm behind on... So you started kind of as a front-end dev or just JavaScript? Yeah, I kind of started as a front-end dev, Ace. Well, not really. I started full stack. So I was doing freelance stuff as a, PHP developer. And those were the first applications I wrote were PHP applications that incorporated HTML and CSS and a little bit of JavaScript. So I had basic JavaScript knowledge, but I could not say I was a JavaScript developer because other real JavaScript developers would run circles around me at that time. So, I'm always careful with what I say I know and what I don't know because I know people that really know, like really, really know these things. So I'm not the guy you're going to find on YouTube that's like, yeah, I'm an expert Angular developer. I'm an expert JavaScript developer. Like, nah, bro. Like, I'm good at what I do. And I can work through most any problem. I've worked on some very complex problems. using JavaScript and in the context of the Angular framework and all of that. But I still know, I listen to a lot of podcasts, and you listen to the guys that wrote the Angular framework. Now, those guys know JavaScript. You know what I'm saying? Like, they were able to use JavaScript to write a framework. So I use it from that reference. Like, I know Angular and I know JavaScript, but those guys like really know the inner workings of the language to be able to do the things that they do. And the guys that, or the team that writes Node, those guys know JavaScript, and those guys know C++, because Node is just a combination of C++ bindings for JavaScript and extensions on the JavaScript language to be able to work on a server. So anyway, I digress. I still say, next Kotlin. They teach that in school or C++. Yeah, when I went to college, A-State, my first classes were, this to tell you how long ago it was and how old I was. My first class was Visual Basic. We were building forms in Visual Basic. Next class was like COBOL and RPG, which is old AS400 mainframe computer languages. I actually met an RPG developer, which blows my mind because that language is so obscure. And then the next class was C++. And it was at that point, after I took that class, I ended up dropping out of college, going and joining the Air Force at that point. And then my life went in a whole different direction for about the next 12 years before I circled back around to programming. So I didn't learn Java in college, but I did learn C++ in college. So David ain't coming back and giving me likes, by the way. So David might be the same person. That's funny. I learned Java on the island of Java. Interesting. Wrote JavaScript in 10 days from what I read. Yeah, that's crazy, huh? Humanity. He did. Man, what's his name? I can't believe I forgot his name. That wrote JavaScript. He did. He wrote it in like 10 or 11 days or something like that. As a, he wanted to, he was working on like some other project, I believe is the story. And he didn't like the language that he had to write it in. So he asked his boss to give him time to create another language. And his boss gave him like 2 weeks to create another language. And he wrote JavaScript in 11 days. So that's crazy, man. That's crazy. I'm back. What I missed? Oh, I didn't know you dropped out there, Ace. What about C++? C++ is a good language too. It leads you in a different path. You're not doing web stuff with C++. You're going to be doing system level stuff with C++. If you want to do like Internet of Things type stuff, or coding or writing code for all types of different stuff, for system level stuff. So, for example, if you were writing if you wanted to write like an operating system like Windows, that was written, you use C++ and stuff for stuff like that. All the things that you interact with on a hardware level. So usually if you go somewhere, you're dealing with like a Redbox machine or any of those type things that have some type of computer in them that allow them to work, they're usually running some version of C++ or something like that. So still a lot of work going on there. Yep. Boom, boom. All right. What can you make more money in? Oh, man. You can make money in any of it. You definitely learn that there are levels to the game. For example, will both be marketable in the future? It depends on how long you want to say the future is. So I always look at it like a short-term game. I never look past like 5 years, And it's like, I kind of specialize in Angular right now. Will Angular be as huge in the next 5 years? I don't know. So I'd say, what's going on, Deborah? That's cool. Lady in the building. I likes that. I don't know if it'll be as huge in the next 5 years, but I just I plan on about 5 years out, and after that, you always got to be willing to pivot. You know. What's up? She getting a warm welcome. Warm welcome. I appreciate it. So you got to be willing to pivot when you're a developer. So I've seen developers that have gone down roads either where you get stuck, not stuck, but you are with your company for so long that all the other developers that were originally there with you end up leaving, and you become the subject matter expert for the program or product that your company is responsible for. But that product has been written probably years and years and years ago. So the technology that was used to write that project is probably fallen out of favor. But you are kind of stuck in that world because that's what you're left of that company supporting, and then the programming world kind of passes you by. New concepts come out, new best practices come out, new programming paradigms come out, new languages or frameworks come out, and unless you're doing programming on the side on your own, you get bypassed. And so if anything ever happens and you lose that gig, you don't have current up-to-date stuff to put on your resume, because while you had job security at that place because you were the only one that knew the code, you also didn't keep up with your skills and knowledge. So it's all good. All good. Oh, y'all just all trying to holler at Deborah now, huh? Okay. Out of all programming language, what would be the easiest to learn to make solid income? Any of them, man. You can learn any of the languages. Well, I take that back. When I say that, I'm just thinking of the big languages. So you may go get some obscure language that's like a niche language that you won't get a lot of work out of. For example, on the front end world, there's Elm, right? Elm is a functional front end language that could replace JavaScript, which is cool to learn because you learn functional programming paradigms. But are you going to be able to secure work regularly as an Elm developer? No, you're not. It's something cool to put on a resume, maybe, that you know Elm, because when you see Elm, which is ELM, when you see that on a resume, it tells you something about the person. If a person has taken the time to learn Elm, that means they're really into programming, and they're really into learning new programming paradigms, because Elm is totally functional. And so you're probably getting a higher level of, I guess you can say that, you're kind of getting a higher level of developer if they have taken the time to learn Elm. But I wouldn't recommend you going to learn Elm to get work. But if you do any of the big programming languages that you hear, Elm, no, I was going to Elm meetups back in Denver over a year and a half ago. So depends on what you mean by recent. It's definitely not something that came out in the last few months. It's been around for a bit, a couple of years at least. Any of the big names though? Java, C++, Python, Ruby, JavaScript. What else? There's even work out there for, Go programmers. Any of those big 5, big 6 languages, you're going to be good to go. PHP, that's cool. What I have found on a personal level is that PHP devs, for example, cap out at a lower level than like some other developers. So Java guys will generally make more money than PHP guys if you're looking at a back end type thing. Even Ruby guys will make more than PHP guys. Don't ask me why, I don't know, but that has been my experience. If you learn PHP and that's your specialty, you're not going to make as much money. See you later, Deborah. I don't know why you dropped in. You should have dropped some questions. Let us know what brought you in. So, that's something that I've learned. So I took PHP off of my resume even. I tried to remove it from everywhere that it was online, but I still get some random recruiters, offer me PHP jobs. And the first thing that I think of when I get a PHP job in my inbox is that it's less money, and it usually is. To give you an example, a PHP job here in Vegas might cap out about, they try to pay you 80 grand, 85 grand or something. And if you are a Java guy, you can get over six figures, and that's here locally, you know what I'm saying? So it could be a difference of $15,000, $20,000, $30,000, and depending on the language you choose. Now, 85 grand is still a decent living in a lot of parts of the U.S., Python, I'm not as well versed on, humanity, because I got a buddy, though, the guy that used to run the PHP meetup that I said was really nice. He now runs the Python meetup here in Vegas. He doesn't run the PHP meetup anymore. But I think I don't know. Python is kind of weird because there's a lot of Python code out there, but Python is also taught for data scientists. So you'll have a lot of people running around that knows enough Python to be dangerous, but not necessarily be quote unquote, I don't know, senior level Python developer type things. They know enough how to do data science with Python. So you'll have a lot of people that flood the market that may have Python on their resume, but may not really be Python developers. And if some of those guys get picked up, some of those people rather, get picked up to do some Python programming, they would probably get paid less because they aren't, quote unquote, Python experts, which could, I'm just conjuring here, which could bring down the overall cost for Python developers. If you can get some of these data scientists that learn Python as part of, exactly. A lot of data, other scientists use it in NASA, for example. So you got a lot of people that know something about Python, and you can probably pay them less than a full-fledged, all I do is Python, develop in Python, and you can get them to hack together some stuff for you. So I don't know how that dynamic would work. You don't really have, in the JavaScript and Java and, or especially deeper into the JavaScript world, like the frameworks Angular and React, the only people that know those are developers, like full-on developers. You don't get any. Usually, if somebody does development as a hobby or they're a hobbyist, they don't necessarily go very deep into, they learn just enough to hack around and get what they wanted to do done. So they don't go deep into learning the frameworks and everything like that. So it's kind of been isolated. Like if you either know Angular or you don't, or you know React and you don't. There's not a lot of people that kind of dip their toe in and kind of sort of, usually you go, once you get into that world, you get kind of sucked in pretty deep. So, which is good for job security. I mean, when I put out a resume and it has Angular and a many years and jobs or different companies and jobs of Angular consistently, I usually don't have any problems. So, is that Angular or jQuery? Is that what you're asking, Ace? First, just get good with well, jQuery and Angular are two different things. So Angular is a full fledged framework. jQuery is more of a library. You don't find a lot of jobs that are looking for um, people that know jQuery very well anymore. I'll just tell you that and be honest. So if you know, as part of the fam and trying to get you paid for work, I would not suggest you go down the jQuery road as far as getting a job to get paid, from traditional job. If you're trying to freelance, it's a different story. Because learning jQuery and how to manipulate the DOM with that library is one thing. But it's kind of fallen out of favor for these frameworks, man. Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people won't say that, but here's the only reason I say that. You got to remember where I'm coming from, too. I spend most of my time in Angular. If you are building larger web apps using a framework like Angular, Angular does not use jQuery at all. 0% will you find. 0% of the projects that I've worked on in the last few years has used any jQuery at all. You find jQuery and vanilla JavaScript in smaller projects. The reason people use frameworks like Angular and like Ember and like React is because it makes it a lot easier to scale to a larger application with a larger team structure. For example, the team that I'm working on is split into 3 different teams: Team 1, Team 2, Team 3. Between those teams, there's probably 15 developers working on the same project. In order to have 15 different people working on the same project and have that not just turn into a big ball of messy code, that's what frameworks are for. When you have a smaller project where there's only 1 or 2, maybe 3 devs working on it, and those 3 devs are in they work on their own little pieces of a project, you can get away with vanilla JavaScript and some jQuery DOM manipulation. If it's a small project, you just need to move some things around on the screen, or maybe a simple little form stuff and stuff like that. But once you get into like multiple screens, all types of different stuff going on, you're stepping into a framework level of web development, So, and once you get to that level, usually the framework has something for you to use to manipulate the DOM that does not involve jQuery. So that's all I'm saying. If you're speaking to people that work on smaller projects or smaller teams, a lot of times when you get your first jobs, it's from a smaller kind of development shop that will take a shot on somebody, then yeah, those people probably still are in that world of using vanilla JavaScript and a little jQuery to get some stuff done. So, yes, Angular is harder to learn. I will not try to sugarcoat that in any way, shape, or form, especially when you're new. Just because you're not familiar with the paradigms, you're not familiar with what Angular is even doing, what's it for. Yeah, Angular is JavaScript. Angular was written with JavaScript. So was jQuery, not jQuery, React. It's all just JavaScript that has been bundled together into a framework, right? But that framework does a lot. It has a lot of functionality in it. So if you're trying to learn and you're not even solid with JavaScript yet, trying to learn and pick up what these frameworks are doing and throwing at you, it's going to be overwhelming. I only say that because I did that. I learned the hard way, that thing. When I learned Angular 1, I was not good at JavaScript, and I was trying to learn JavaScript and Angular at the same time, and that's why I have no hair on this head right now, because it was rough. It was really rough, and over the years I took the time to slow down and really unwind and get good at JavaScript. So I definitely won't recommend learning Angular or React or Ember or any of those front-end frameworks, Vue.js, before you get really comfortable with JavaScript. Build a couple of simple web pages, learn how to make forms, learn how to move stuff around using JavaScript. Make you a slide-in navigation that comes in, and you can click something on the navigation and it closes and it changes something on the screen. Learn how to do all that type stuff with JavaScript first, and then you'll have a good understanding at least of what's going on behind the scenes kind of thing, especially with the form stuff, because that teaches you how to make AJAX requests to communicate between different computers. That's what the web is. It's literally a network of computers communicating with each other. So you need to learn how that whole process works, what HTTP statuses are and what status codes are, and what an API is. I remember getting paid. Man, when I got my first job, if you asked me what is an API, I couldn't even tell you. And somebody was paying me to be a developer, man. So just take time and learn all that stuff. It ain't got to take you years either, but just really making the projects is the biggest thing. Start making the projects, and I think you'll be good to go from there. So no worries. All right, I think that's it. Any questions from anybody else? I know Ace been tearing it up. Cool. All right, I think we're good. Oh, Jay asked, is it necessary to learn about WordPress? I think my last video was on WordPress, Jay. Last video was on WordPress. It is not necessary to learn WordPress. However, if you were in a rush to get out and start making money, being a freelance developer, I recommend WordPress as one of the ways to do that. So, because you can start making little brochure sites for companies. You can get out old-fashioned, go door knocking, visiting small mom and pop companies from where you're at. Start trying to find their websites. If you're driving down the street, you see a company, local company, try to Google it on your phone right quick. See if they even have a website. If they don't, you can start offering to build websites for local companies and stuff like that. And you can kind of build up your own little freelance business from doing that, and WordPress is a way to do it. You want to see a WordPress site? Let me see how to spell it. I'm going to tell you how to spell this site. So the salon that my lady came from the beauty industry. Let me see if they still got the... there it goes. Boom. I'm going to tell you how to spell this, and you're going to go see... Yep. Okay, cool. So if you go to, the name of the salon is Posare. 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 Salons.com. PosareSalons.com. Posare Salons.com. If you go look at that page was made with WordPress. The owner of the salons paid this guy $10,000 to make that. that is why I say learn WordPress and you can go make you some money. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Word. Yeah. Exactly, Ace. That's what I'm saying. She paid $10,000 to have that. So all I'm saying is, if you want to, now don't think you can learn WordPress and start go making 10 grand a pop. That's an isolated incident, and I'm sure you can't get over on people like that all the time. When I heard that, I almost fainted because I'm like, man, you could have had me do something 10 times better than that for like half the money. But especially at that point, because I was still new and learning, I just wanted to do some work. But yeah, man, you can learn WordPress and you learn a little bit of Photoshop, not even how to create stuff, but how to just move stuff around, modify some images and stuff. You got you a nice little freelance business going on. Now, what you don't want to do is get trapped in that world, because a lot of people get burnt out in that world because you're not really progressing, but you can get stuck because you start making some recurring money. So how do you break out of that to go do something else? So do be forewarned with that, but I'm just telling you, if you want to make some money quickly, then WordPress can be a way to go for that. So for me, I don't think it would work long term. I get bored easily. So if I'm just building, brochure site after brochure site after brochure site after brochure site after brochure site, I'm gonna get bored eventually. And it's like there's no challenge in it. You're just putting content on a page and providing it for people to see. There may be very few. There's not big challenges in it. I like to build web applications where you're figuring out some weird, hard stuff to do, and that's just not weird and hard. Once you get the hang of it, after you've made 10 or 15 or 20 sites, you've pretty much seen everything that you're going to run into, unless you come up against some weird, crazy stuff. So for me, I would just get bored after a while. Nothing against WordPress developers. Hey, hats off to them. Every company needs a website. Needs some type of brochure website. So somebody got to get that money. So might as well be them. But it's just not for me. It's not the type of development that I personally enjoy doing for years and years on end. So that's it. All right, let's see. I think I'm going to call it. This has gone on way longer than what I thought. Confidence is in the eye of the beholder. Yes, it is. Difference between making it through HTML and CSS versus WordPress. WordPress is a CMS, which stands for Content Management System. So what WordPress allows the owner of the website to do is to go in and make changes to the content on the page without having to come back to you and say, hey, Ace, I want to run this, special discount for the next 10 days. Can you put this piece of text up on my website for me? WordPress has a built-in backend that allows the owner of the salon to go in and change all of that text that you see up there without having to go back to the developer. So that's what a content management system is. So you'll see WordPress, you'll hear Drupal is another one. You'll hear Magento. It's kind of like a CMS / e-commerce type deal as well. So those are kind of those big platforms. Really, WordPress and Drupal are the two big CMSs that you'll hear. So companies will have their main websites built in something like that. So that's the biggest thing. So boom, 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 boom. I think that's it, y'all. I think I'm gonna call it. I'm gonna do a little bit more work here in the office, and that's it, man. That's it. Yeah. Good night to y'all too. I'm trying to think. Was there anything else I wanted to drop? Of course, man. Of course, I'm always here to help, man. So I think that's it for now. I'll holler at y'all later. Peace.